right, thank you. I'm really excited to be here to talk to you today about congested space, the more the merrier. So we've heard a lot today about new things that are happening in space, so this is going to be a really important presentation about how we keep space safe. So I've been in the space business for almost 30 years. Yes, I am old. Okay, but space has changed dramatically in that time. It has gone from a relatively benign environment with really just a few space operators. Intelsat, for example, is 50 years old. And now it's, quite frankly, rather congested. And in fact, sometimes it is even contested. Since 1995, the number of satellite operators has grown about 300%. But here's another thing. Space is cool again. So, because it's enabling all kinds of applications that you heard today. For example, you can't take a plane anywhere in the world without being connected now. That's happening over satellite. Those trillions of connections that John Kirshner talked about, that is enabled by space. And even we're connecting cars with two-way communication to geostationary satellites. So with all of these new applications happening in space, everyone wants to get into the space business. And you know what? That's great. The more the merrier. But space is a domain that we have to preserve in order for all these companies to do the really cool stuff that they want to do. Very similar to the way that we preserve our world and the way that we preserve our oceans. If we don't set some standards in space, it is definitely a domain that will degrade. And currently, there's just some really outdated international treaties that govern space. And they never envisioned the vibrant and growing space environment that we have today. So we need to take these treaties and we need to update them. And we need to create a list of best practices in space that all space operators can sign up to. What might these lists of best practices look like? Well, first of all, if you're going to launch something into space, you need to tell somebody. Preferably, you need to tell the companies that are monitoring and tracking objects in space. You need to tell them what you're launching and when you're launching and how they can contact you. In addition, once you become a new space operator, you need to ensure that you have the systems in place to communicate with your object in space and to know accurately where you are at all times. And then you need to provide that information to the organizations that monitor space and the space groups that work together to keep space safe. Because these are the guys that are actually going to provide you real-time warnings should your satellite or space object be on the path to hitting another space object. This is especially true if you are a nanosat or a CubeSat and you can't maneuver, because that means we all have to go around you. So it's really important that the smaller the space object, those are the most important for you to monitor and be sure that you know accurately where they are. Another best practice is to keep out of other objects' station-keeping box, essentially the area around them where they can maneuver freely. And you should always let them know when you're flying by in relatively the same orbit. When you have two objects in space that are in close proximity to each other and one is radio silent, it creates a lot of risk because neither object really knows what the other is going to do. In cases like this, we need a way of enforcing best practices. Honestly, right now, even the most obvious safety of flight rules are very difficult to enforce in space. But for the most part, space operators want to create a peaceful and prosperous domain for everyone to enjoy. And there are discussions underway in the international space community to set some new guidelines. We don't have to recreate the wheel. We've done this before. We've set international guidelines in the air domain. And we've also set international guidelines for ships at sea. But we need to get in front of this now because space objects are proliferating at an alarming rate. We've got to get in front of this. And what we call this new effort space traffic management. And there happens to be US organizations that are ready to stand up to the challenge to create an international space traffic management framework. My personal opinion is that the US commercial and civil organizations that operate in space need to get together and create a list of standards that they can sign up to. And then we can invite our international civil and commercial brothers to join in to really create a global framework. This would be based on best practices, better data sharing, and some ideas about how to enforce it. Once we have these rules of the road, we can invite the DoD and other military operators to join us. That would expand the community and it would spread the workload. But until then, we really owe a huge thanks to the Joint Space Operations Center and the hundreds of Air Force personnel who keep our space safe for everyone. Space is a really exciting place right now. There's a whole bunch of new applications coming, and there are a whole bunch of new space companies that are going to be new operators. However, it is a domain that is growing in complexity, and what it requires is responsible operations, some type of international framework, space traffic management framework, and it requires some level of enforcement. So to all of you that are future space operators, we can solve this. We need to set some standards that will protect space and keep it vibrant for all mankind. Thank you.